we've got students that are already playing all these games. Why wouldn't we bring them in and organize them and have them do it together in a place where we can build some community and a positive culture around it? And also, now we've got, we're running athletic eligibility for everybody on my team. They have to keep their grades up if they want to be on the team and compete. So there's some really good academic benefits. And we just know that students who are a part of something in a school, their academic achievement improves, their self-confidence and mental health improves. There's all these, intrinsic and kind of side benefits to being a part of something. And so that was really what drew me to it.
I'm Nikki Herda, and this is Bright, Stories of Hope and Innovation in Michigan Classrooms, a podcast where we celebrate our state's educators and explore the future of learning. Bright is brought to you in part by Mimic Insurance Company, insuring the educational community for more than 70 years. Teachers and school employees visit mimic.com/quote to see how much you can save. In today's episode of Bright, I chat with Steve Forsberg, assistant principal of Ludington High School, who also serves as their esports coach, guiding students as they compete against other teams across the state in online games like League of Legends, Mario Kart, and more. Steve offers some background information for those who aren't very familiar with esports, explains why these leagues are booming in popularity and why they're so beneficial for students, and shares his top 3 tips for starting an esports program at your school. All right, Steve. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the Bright podcast today. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
Yeah. So we're kicking off season 3, just asking everybody, first, can you tell me about the most interesting project that you're doing at your school right now?
Me personally, I'm the assistant principal here at Ludington High School, have been for 6 years now. And one of the unlikely roles that I've taken over is also as the esports coach. And so despite the fact that my limited video game knowledge is back from Legend of Zelda and Mario Brothers and things like that, I've started the program, got a great group of kids that are helping me really figure out the ins and outs, and we've been growing, and we've got, we've got 4 different varsity teams, a couple of sub-varsity teams, and we also have some kids that just want to be around and want to be part of it. So they're kind of managers and scouts. And so we've got at least 25, 30 kids every season that come out.
That's so cool. When did you guys start your esports programs?
So we started a year ago now, but because of the way it works in Michigan with the Michigan High School Esports League, they do both a spring and a fall season. So we started last spring, we played this fall, and now we're technically in our 3rd season. So we're playing the spring season again.
That's awesome. I happened to see a picture on Twitter the other day, I think, of your esports league that I think MASSP shared, and it looked like a lot a
is. It's a ton
they were
of
playing
fun.
Smash Bros, I think.
Yep, we have Smash Bros. We've got 2 different teams of that. League of Legends, Smite. The new one this year is Mario Kart, which is super cool. We got a lot of kids excited about that. And then Rocket League, which is big around the world. So it's a lot of fun.
So cool. I am not by any means a professional or very good, but I love Smash Bros. And I know Overwatch is considered like an esports team, I guess. Yep. I like Rocket League. I'm very bad. And I love Smash Bros. And Mario Kart. So
yeah, those are a lot of fun.
Speaking my language, I was like, oh, that's so cool that you can do a varsity sports in that. Maybe I would have done sports.
I know. Well, and Nikki, that's the cool thing. Like we've got such an eclectic group of kids. So for example, one of my captains is also an all-state tennis player. Like he's like the traditional athlete, but he's the captain of Rocket League. And then I've got other kids that they would never have been involved in anything organized with their high school. And they're putting on the orange and black. We're getting jerseys made. Like they're excited. They get varsity letters for this. We're competing against teams all across the state. There's a state championship. We actually went and watched it in person at Eastern Michigan University in the fall. It's just really cool to see kids that would otherwise not be involved in something organized with us, and now they're on a team, and you can see that in them.
So I do want to ask really quick before we dive in more, just if you could tell me about a moment you vividly remember falling in love with education.
You know, when I think back, it's interesting because like many people, I thought I was going to be something completely different. You know, I was pre-med at Michigan State for a year and a semester. And it just wasn't working out, and that's fine. And I tell kids that all the time. Sometimes what you think you're going to be isn't what you're going to end up being. But my senior year at the track banquet, my coaches stood up and said, "We really think that Steve should be a teacher because he does so well coaching the younger grades, and we know he's going to be this." And in that moment of like me questioning, should I continue to be a doctor or not, that just rang with me. And I kind of realized, thinking back about that, I did love, like, through sports, coaching younger kids and doing like the rec basketball stuff. And I've always wanted to help people. So I think without knowing it, I fell in love with being in education before I ever knew I was going to be in education.
Well, it certainly seems like you ended up in the right place. So that's pretty cool to hear. Thank you. So today we are going to be talking about 3 tips for starting an esports program at your school. First, I would like to pause and unpack like the why a little bit and just some key terms in case someone's not familiar with esports. So just for someone listening, would you mind defining what esports are in case they don't know really what that means? I know we gave examples, but that still might not mean, a whole lot to somebody if they're not familiar. So
no, Nikki, I think that's a great question because a lot of people hear esports and they think, oh, it's video games. It's kids playing video games. Well, it's actually so much more than that. It is kids playing video games, but they're playing it on a team in a competitive atmosphere. There's communication, there's coordination, there's teamwork, there's accountability. It has all the aspects of traditional athletics and extracurriculars. It's just taking something that, and this was kind of one of the big selling points to me because I'm like a traditional athletic person. I, golf, basketball, track in high school. I coached basketball and track when I was a teacher. But what really hit a chord with me was we've got students that are already playing all these games. Why wouldn't we bring them in and organize them and have them do it together in a place where we can build some community and a positive culture around it? And also, now we've got, we're running athletic eligibility for everybody on my team. They have to keep their grades up if they want to be on the team and compete. So there's some really good academic benefits. And we just know that students who are a part of something in a school, their academic achievement improves, their self-confidence and mental health improves. There's all these, intrinsic and kind of side benefits to being a part of something. And so that was really what drew me to it. But we compete in a state league run by the Michigan Association for Secondary School Principals, MASSP. And they've started their own league called the Michigan High School Esports League. They have partnered with Play Versus, which is a company who kind of helps us collaborate together. And we get on platforms. We play against schools all around the state. So like we played East Kentwood the other day, cool. Divine Child. The nice thing is this has been kind of pandemic proof for us. So even throughout the pandemic, because it doesn't require you traveling and being face to face with anyone, we were able to do it remotely. So we didn't lose that aspect where some traditional sports lost seasons. But it's a lot more. And I think the other piece is that for people to understand about esports is the gaming industry is like $180 billion with a B dollar per year industry. And there's so many more things to do than just be a professional gamer or be a game creator. So we've got some students that designed our jersey and they're into graphic design. They could write their ticket anywhere. They're super talented. Some people that are into doing things like what you're doing now, which is like, game casting and interviewing and broadcasting, and they run a streaming service for us and do all of our social media. So there's a lot of connections that we've been able to kind of draw a really eclectic group of kids together. And there's some students that, they play a little bit, but really they're more there to scout the team that we're playing or to do the data on the backside. So there's just a lot of intricacies to it. It's so much more than just playing video games.
Yeah. And just from, having friends interested in esports and everything, like it's not going anywhere, it's growing and growing, and not even just as like a hobby, like people are making their careers in it, either like you said, being a part of it or like actually playing the esports, but also just the industries that are building up around it. So it's really cool that like you said, you've got students who are getting graphic design experience that they could put on a resume to help them get an internship or, or any number of things that would support any sort of, any business, but could really be a place for them to like test out those skills and, have something that they can really be proud of.
Yeah.
It's really awesome.
And I think something you said about, the future of esports, it feels like right now esports is something that we can get kids in on the ground level. It's almost like if I could go in a time machine and know about Google back in the day. Yeah. Like search engines are going to be huge. When I was growing up with the internet evolving around me, I didn't know that was going to be the big thing. Well, these kids kind of do know. They're on the inside of the tent. And so having an esports program kind of legitimizes that. It exposes them to some of the collegiate and also some of the career opportunities that are available there. And they can then focus their energies in a place they're passionate about, but also could be really lucrative for them. And they're kind of getting in on the ground floor. It's a growing industry. I want to say, I don't know if it was the Rocket League championships, but there was an esports championship this year that had more viewership around the world than the Super Bowl. Wow. It was either League of Legends or
I was going to say either Rocket League or League of Legends, I'm sure.
And that just kind of tells you the demographic shift going on across the world this is going to be a big thing. It's not going anywhere. So as an educator, why not give our students opportunities to get exposed to this and to grow in that area and do it in an organized, safe way, and build a good culture around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that argument makes a lot of sense to me, because I wouldn't have, even as someone who kind of likes these, I wouldn't have thought of that intuitively, like, oh yeah, you should have a club at school. But your argument makes so much sense that it's like, they're doing it anyway. Students are doing it anyway at home. And, there are actually, I'm sure this is no shock to you, and I'm sure the students have told you, plenty of like not super great communities online that you can fall into in that world. There's a lot of like, they call it like toxic people, and toxic chatting. And so if you can take that and turn it into like a learning experience and something that's positive and teaches you skills. And like you said, it's good for, community building, mental health, and can help and boost their academics by having that kind of academic eligibility requirement. Like that sounds like a win all around. That's brilliant, honestly. So
yes, it's been nice. And just to have, like, I mentioned MASSP before, and to have them spearhead it for our state. And without me being a part of that organization or having some exposure to it, I probably would have never thought of bringing this to our kids. Yeah. And they've been so supportive along the way that I think that's the other thing. And we're going to talk about it more in a little bit, but hopefully my example is not one that I know a lot about this or I'm great at it, but it's just that, you take the leap of faith and there's a ton of support out there for you. And in spite of my lack of knowledge and ability in the gaming world, like we're able to have a pretty successful team and the kids are having a great time and it's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine they help out, right? Like they know, so they know what's up.
They know what's up. It's kind of, and this is even before my day, but like way back in the NBA, there used to be a lot of player coaches, like Pete Maravich and people like that, like that kind of that's what I have, I'm more of like a director role. I kind of organize and administrate things and make sure, like, I know how to coach teams, like set a good culture, reinforce our values, have good norms, be organized and things like that. But the kids, they I have captains for every team. They kind of coach up. They make sure I know enough to not be dangerous, and not know, but it's a really low barrier of entry for me as an adult, which is nice.
Very cool. So could you tell me a story about a student who benefited by participating in esports?
Yeah. One is, and I think they would have been really successful anyways, but our sole alumni came back as my assistant coach this year, and they are phenomenal. Oh, cool. She's just a super talented young lady, and but seeing her grow and blossom in that role, I just know she's going to be really successful, and it's been cool it's kind of validating that we've created a culture that she wanted to come back and still be a part of it. And she's taken on that role of being like very responsible. Like as the assistant principal, I can't always be as available as I want to be. Sometimes something happens at the end of the day and I wouldn't be there to start practice as quickly as I want to. And she's like there, she's on it. She's organized. She helped organize, ordering the jerseys and picking the design out of a bunch of different ones. It's just, seeing that connection and seeing her come back was great. And then, like I said earlier, we've just got, I don't want to exaggerate too much, but I would say at least a quarter to a third of our team, I know would not be involved in anything else to do with the school. They're just not like drama club people. They're not in the choir. They're not going out for traditional sports, and being able to have them be part of a team. A couple of them are my captains, and they're just really shining, and they've taken on leadership roles in that. And so it's been neat to empower kids in something that they're really passionate about and they have a lot of knowledge and skill in, and for them to see other people appreciate them for what they're doing already. It's just been really cool.
That's pretty cool. And I, maybe have more, excitement and empathy for it because I was in marching band, so I was like a band nerd,
Yeah.
And I just think about so I was like, I was drum major when I was in high school.
That's awesome. And that's a big deal.
For me, it really was because I was shy before that. So I was shocked to even, have that opportunity. But I think about the leadership that taught me, when I would definitely not have gotten that elsewhere. Right. Just based on, the fact that I didn't really do any other clubs or sports through school. So I can imagine you've expanded the opportunities for you have the example of your assistant coach. I don't know, maybe she would have done something else, but you said that there's a lot of other kids in the program that might not have done something through school at least. Yeah. And so then they're getting all these growth opportunities and leadership opportunities with their peers that really can change your life, and transform your self-confidence. So that's powerful. I don't know. You mentioned that esports are rising dramatically in popularity, around the world. But I'm wondering, just in terms of Michigan schools, do you have a sense for so how big is this? How far has it spread so far? In Michigan, how many leagues are there?
Well, and I'll speak mainly to the Michigan High School Esports League that we're a part of. Having it started, I think, 2 to 3 years ago. We weren't in on the initial fall season, but we got in on that spring season, I think the first year. Play Versus, the group that we work with, has said we are one of the fastest growing states in the nation.
Wow. There's
other states that are really well positioned because they've been in the game a little longer. Like Georgia is the model for a lot of places. They actually, the MHSAA of Georgia, so their athletic association runs it and has taken it over, and it's a big deal. But we are growing to the point where we now have, I think we have up to 3 schools in the Upper Peninsula. Mackinac Island or Mackinac City is competing. So it's really cool because the remote schools, they don't have the travel barrier.
Yeah.
So totally. A UP school would have to get on a bus or maybe get on a plane to go play
8 hours
volleyball
almost,
or something,
depending on where it is. Yeah.
And they can compete right from home with people all around the state. So that's been cool, but I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know that we are we have over 120 separate teams, and I think we're in like 53 schools around the state. So it's really cool just to see it grow. And like I said, we've gone to the state championship. They did the first in-person state championship at Eastern Michigan University in the fall, and to go there and see not only the schools that were competing, but a bunch of schools just went to watch it like it was at the Breslin Center for the basketball or what. It's just cool to have that vibe around esports now, where you can go as a spectator and watch the top teams in the state compete. So it's growing dramatically. We're really hopeful to continue to grow it here in Michigan, and it's just really cool to be a part of.
I'm Nikki Herda, and you're listening to Bright, stories of hope and innovation in Michigan classrooms. Bright is brought to you in part by Mimic Insurance Company, insuring the educational community for more than 70 years. Teachers and school employees visit mimic.com/quote to see how much you can save. Today, I'm chatting with Steve Forsberg, assistant principal of Ludington High School, who also serves as their esports coach. Up next, we dive into Steve's top 3 tips for starting an esports program at your school. All right, are you ready to dig into your top 3 tips for starting an esports program at your school?
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty, want to kick us off with number 1?
Yeah, so tip number 1 is you don't need prior or current gaming or esports knowledge to get a program going. Like I said earlier, I honestly haven't played a video game in I don't know how many years. I used to play with my younger brother, like Legend of Zelda back in the day and Super Mario Brothers on the old school Nintendo, but I didn't need any gaming knowledge to get the program going. And I really don't have that much more now that I'm a coach. I know a little bit of the lingo that the kids say, but there's still stuff they talk about that I really don't understand. And that's okay. The biggest thing is, like, especially as an assistant principal, but as an educator in general, you want to create opportunities to have positive interactions with kids. Like, that's kind of what fills our cups up as educators. So in my role, it's really nice to kind of engineer those opportunities. And creating this team was kind of that for me. And then I knew there was enough interest for the kids. And MASSP and the Michigan High School Esports League made it so easy. They had templates for parent letters. Play Versus came in with like all this information on esports in general that I used in my parent meetings, and letters home. And they had interest surveys that I could use with kids to see who might be my target audience. I mean, they supplied me with so much stuff that it was really, really easy to get it going once I decided. And it helped me also pitch it by, I had to go to the superintendent and say, hey, this is a worthwhile investment in our kids. And so there were a lot of things that helped me get past some of the obstacles that would have presented themselves out there. But I think the one obstacle that I'd love to clear away for people is you don't have to have any prior knowledge, and you don't really have to have any skill in video games. You just got to want to connect with kids and give them opportunities to have fun together and create a culture.
I imagine that's really helpful to hear because I could see it being a little like intimidating as an educator, like, oh, that sounds cool, but I don't know anything about that. So I appreciate you sharing that reassurance with listeners. I was wondering, do you have any examples of like lingo that you've learned by doing this?
Oh gosh, like my League of Legends team, they just like, it's stream of consciousness for them. They're just like flowing during the game, and they're like, hey, my ADC is out of position and I need support down here. We're going bot lane. Who's in mid? And they're saying all these characters, and I'm just like struggling to keep up.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my assistant coach, who I talked about earlier, she's our former varsity League of Legends player. So I'm like, what are they talking about, coach? And she's like, oh, they're saying this and that. She kind of is like my translator.
Yep.
But there's so many little nuances. It's cool because, you get to a certain point in your education career and you're like, man, you know so much more than the kids in your core content area, whatever you're teaching. This is an opportunity for me to be a learner again. Mm-hmm. The kids actually know way more than I probably ever will about this. And I'm always learning new stuff. And that's kind of what attracted a lot of us to education in the first place, is we're just voracious learners. So I'm very open and honest with the kids. I'm like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to help you do what you want to do. I'm going to empower you. And so it's just kind of neat. It's cool.
I gotta imagine too, like as an educator, it's fun, even in a way just to see them like talking over your head about this game, but also just to see how excited they are. I assume, if they score a goal against their opposing team or whatever, depending on what game it is. But, if they score a victory, just that excitement, it's got to be contagious.
Oh, yeah. They're high-fiving. Even when we were like virtual, they'd be like screen fist bumping each other and stuff. It's just they're super excited and it's fun. And like I said, they're doing this at home anyways. So now they get to do it for the team. They're going against other teams. There's kind of some fun rivalries. Us in Northville down south. Like we've got a cool rivalry, but there's also some really cool friendships that they've created with some of the players on the team. And it's kids they never would have met otherwise. So it's just a neat thing to be a part of and see them go through and kind of help them access.
That gave me goosebumps. I don't know. Just like, I think that's so cool. Like they, like you said, not all these kids might have been involved. They might have just been doing this on their own, or probably would have been. And so, but they met some other students from across the state and had that experience. So that's awesome. But I imagine it's also like, relying and fostering the growth of the students too. That fills in some of those knowledge gaps. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I have a captain system that I've kind of developed and I've stole from some other people. And so I've got at least one senior captain and one underclass captain. So one of my captains is always a senior. One of them is either a freshman through a junior. And that way we kind of have like a tradition of leadership going through that always kind of comes up. And they take on certain roles of like helping me communicate, making sure the team's organized, making sure everyone's going to be there on time. Just some of the accountability pieces, but also they help me fill in that knowledge gap. Like I'll go to them and say, look, I'm going to make the end decision because I'm the coach, but tell me like who's doing well, who's not, what do we need to talk to them about? And I kind of help them allow me to have the knowledge to have some of those coaching conversations. Sometimes if they're comfortable sitting in with me, I let them do that with me, which is a cool kind of growing opportunity. Put them in some situations where they get to lead and they get to manage other people. And that's something that, if you're going to be successful in your life and in your career, you got to be comfortable, having those conversations with people, doing it in a positive way. So it builds the team up versus, having conflict or like you said, being toxic. Which is what sometimes would happen online with them. So now they're, in a supported way, we're doing things in a positive way that makes us better and grow as a team. And so it's nice to have those captains that really kind of fill the gaps for me in the knowledge base that I'm lacking.
Very cool. All right. Well, you want to lead us into your second tip?
Yeah. So number 2 is just empower the students to help you start and grow that esports program. And that's something that we just kind of talked about with the player coaches, but we've got a bunch of different roles. It's like any other team. They help me fundraise. We go out in the community and we do community things. We did a monster bash with WMOM 102.7, which is one of our like sponsors and partners here in town. They're the hometown radio station, and we help them put on this community Halloween extravaganza that they do every year.
Cool.
And so it was a cool fundraiser for us, but it also got us out in the community and show off the esports team. And I just rely on the kids a lot to help do a lot of that stuff. I don't know how to stream. They do. I don't know the games. They do. So, let them help you start it and help grow it. Honestly, when I first put out the interest survey that I got from MASSP, I had over 50 kids that said they were interested. We're a school of 700. That's a pretty significant percentage of kids. And not all of them ended up hanging on, and some of them go in from one season to the next, depending on other things they might do. But, we're probably impacting 40 to 50 kids throughout the year. And so the interest is out there. So don't be afraid to reach out, get a core group of kids that you think are interested, have them help you kind of grow it and plan some things. And so it's just neat to see that piece of it because these kids really want that. And as soon as they get that piece of, hey, we're a team, hey, we're legitimate, we're on the morning announcements, we're out there in the community, we're out there in the schools, and they think it's really cool. And they just they soak that up, and they'll go. I mean, I got kids that I didn't know a year ago, and they'd run through the brick wall for you now because you've got that connection with them. So it's just really, really cool, powerful stuff. It's why we in education do what we do. So it's a neat opportunity. If you don't have an esports program in your school, this is something that you could take advantage of as an educator and really create and foster that for some kids and for yourself.
Very cool. So it sounds like it was pretty clear after you sent that interest survey that there was a really good amount of student interest. Were you pretty surprised by that? Pleasantly surprised, or?
I knew I had some kids. Like when I first heard about this was through MASSP, and Play Versus came and did a little presentation to us. And they were kind of trying to get it off the ground. And I heard about it and I thought about it, and we didn't do the fall league, but I grabbed a couple of kids that I knew were interested and said, hey, what do y'all think? Would this go? Would this work? And they said, yeah, Mr. Forsberg, it would. Like, let's see how many people there are. And when I put the survey out, I was a little overwhelmed in a good way. But it was just easier to find kids that want to do it than I ever thought it would be. And like you said, there's a little bit of attrition there, but to have 25, 30 kids every single season that can make it happen and prioritize it. And it's nice because it's something we can be flexible with. I had some students that they still played tennis and did esports. They were swimmers and they did esports. They were in the musical. They did Les Miserables, which is a huge production, and they could still be a part of the esports team. So you can make it more flexible. You kind of I think the one thing that I've forced myself to do is you can't quite treat it like traditional athletics. Like the idea of, hey, practice every day, 2 hours a day. If you're not there, you're not on the team. That doesn't really fit for esports and for the population you're going after. So even if a kid can make it one day out of the week, like, hey, you're on the team, we want you.
Yeah.
We want the one day we get you. If you can make it all, we do 3 days of in-person practice. If you can make it all 3 days, great. It's just it's been more flexible, and the kids, like I said, just empowering them to kind of help me figure out what works and what doesn't has been a key to the team's success.
What kind of reception have you gotten, like with parents and with the community?
We haven't got to the point where we have a lot of in-person spectators or like big events, but that's something that the Michigan High School Esports League is pushing towards with MASSP, is to try and like maybe have some regional in-person events. They've gone to the in-person state championships. So, and I think this spring we're going to be at Oakland University. Cool. So it's just cool to go to some different venues and stuff, but like finding the sponsorship with WMOM here in town was great. They were so excited to be a part of the program and support the program. So it's been a really warm reception. That's probably one of our goals in the seasons moving forward, is like really get our social media presence going, really get out in the community even more. Because we've got a really positive thing going on here. The group of kids is amazing, just phenomenal. So the more opportunities we have to showcase them, the better.
Super cool. All right. Want to give us your third tip?
Yeah. So my third tip would be connect with Michigan High School Esports League, connect with the Michigan Association for Secondary School Principals. They're the ones that have sponsored the league and are supporting it. And Play Versus, our partner with the esports, they will give you everything you need and all the supports possible. Ryan Casey at MASSP and Maggie Helmer, they kind of partner to lead the esports push on their end. They're phenomenal folks. They are just passionate about esports and getting kids into things and involved in stuff. So like questions, needs, obstacles, concerns, reach out to them. They're going to help you get it going. They're going to help you convince your superintendent. They'll help you talk to your principal because they're probably a member of MASSP. And the cool thing is they've gotten such a strong response at the high school level that their goal next year is to start down in middle school having some things.
Ooh.
It'll just be cool because I've seen the positive impact for our kids. I really believe in it. And the more students that we can get involved in something, I just think the better outcomes for our kids, the better outcomes for our community and our state and really the world. So just connect with folks. Honestly, connect with me. I'm happy to talk to anybody, and hey, call me up, email me. Hey, Steve, I want to do this, but I don't know what to do. Great. I was there once. We can help you out. And I've got other contacts all around the state, someone that probably is very near to you in your local area that is doing esports already. We'll connect you with someone that's close to you too and say, hey, they'll help you figure it out. We'll walk through it together and grow this movement for kids.
Let's say it's a student who's interested in esports, right? So maybe, either administration isn't, maybe just not even aware or not quite on board yet, but there's a student who's like, hey, I really want to start an esports league at my school. I think that would be so cool. What advice would you, give that student or that family, in terms of trying to get that started?
I think that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. I would say most students have a trusted adult in the building, someone they know they can go to, or someone that they just connect with better than maybe other adults. Find one of those trusted adults, go and have a conversation with them and just say, hey, I really think this esports thing would be cool. How might we be able to make that happen? Not that person's going to be your coach or your advisor or sponsor or whatever, but how might I bring this to administration? How might I talk to the assistant principal or the principal about it? Talk to other club leaders and say, hey, how do you get a club going? Most schools, they have a process for starting a club. And it could be, find one person to be your sponsor, your advisor, and then get some kids around. A lot of places say, hey, if you've got 5 kids and an advisor, you're a club. Go. So it doesn't have to start big. You don't have to have 25 players right away. Even if you have enough to field a Rocket League team, which is 3 people, you can be in the league. You don't have to have the full 4 or 5 teams. Some years we don't compete in a certain sport because there's not enough interest there. That's okay. You could be a one team or a one kind of game team, and that's fine. But I would say, connect with an adult that you trust, have a conversation, have them help you move it forward. Go to your administration. I know sometimes hey, I'm the assistant principal. I have to give out tardies and detentions sometimes. And I think people think I'm a big, scary guy. Your administrators are not. They're in this because they care about kids and they want you to have fun and do well and be successful in school. If you've got an idea that you think will help you be successful and have a good experience in school, go talk to them about it. Schedule a time with the secretary. Say, hey, when can I talk to Mrs. or Mr. So-and-so? I think being brave enough to do that and start the conversation is really great advice for students.
Really awesome. Any other advice that you would give, I guess, on the flip side of that, to a school? So a student comes to you and says, they come to somebody and says, we want to start this off. Do you have any advice that you'd give to the educators or school leaders who are receiving that inquiry?
Yeah, I think, obviously as school leaders and educators, we want to create opportunities for kids, but there's always the real world side of it of, hey, gaming computers cost a lot of money, or financially, how can we do this? Can we afford to pay another coach? Things like that. If you look at it from a lens of how much it costs you to run a volleyball team every year, or to run the tennis or golf team or the football team, I think you would find that if you really did a cost analysis of esports versus traditional sports, it's a very cost-effective way to get students involved in something positive. So I know as an administrator, or thinking about central business personnel who, their job is to think of the big picture in dollars and cents sometimes and things like that. I think it's actually a cost-effective way to get kids involved. There are tons of sponsorships. I think about it a lot First Robotics. That is a very intensive resource expensive thing to do, to build a robot and go compete around the state and around the nation and the world. There are so many sponsors too. So anyone who wants to start an esports team, go get out in your community and let them know, hey, I want to start an esports team. I have 50 kids interested. By the way, that's at least 100 parents that do business in the community. We'd love to associate you with being a supporter of our program. You would be so surprised how many people are like, yes, I want in. I've got a colleague in Bay City, Andy Kowalczyk, who he's the coach there. He's the assistant principal there. They did jerseys with like sponsors all over them, like the pros did. Cool. They've got people competing for prime real estate on their right and left arms and things.
Wow.
So just a neat anecdote that you will be so surprised. All those real world barriers that, you know, like your superintendent should ask you, hey, what's this going to cost? Well, again, the people at MASSP can help you with kind of breaking that down and having a good presentation for them. But it's not really a big cost, and people will help you get what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine, you know, it might draw out like a different set of sponsors than traditional sports might, because you just never know who's like really into that. There could be somebody who's, you know, adults. There's plenty of adults that also like esports. There could be somebody in your community that's like an avid Rocket League player on the side of being a lawyer. I mean, who knows, you know,
exactly.
Like the kind of connections that might exist that just might not, you know, like the person might not have any contact with traditional sports, but they'd be like, oh yeah, I'll support that. You know, I want to be involved. So
yeah, absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense. So very cool. All right. I've got one last question for you, if you have time.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me about a teacher who had a positive impact on your life?
Yeah. Both and I talked about it a little bit earlier, but both my track coaches, Doc Johnson and Mr. Erickson, Jim Erickson, they're the ones that kind of saw in me the potential to be an educator. It's sad in a way because I've since lost connection with them. You know, I think they're still around home. I think Doc might be in Arizona now, but you know, if they watch this or someone that knows them watch this, just, you know, they're probably the reason why I'm in education. And I just thank them for what they did for me along the way, believing in me and kind of giving me that spark to think back, you know, my sophomore year in college, to think, man, you know, Doc and Mr. E really thought I should try this. Maybe I should try that. And, you know, not that I'm the greatest educator ever, but to know that I've had a positive impact on other people and the ripple effect that they created in me, and hopefully I create in other people. It's kind of why we do what we do. And so thank you, Doc and E, if you guys are out there or someone sends this to them, I really appreciate that.
Without a doubt, it's challenging work to start a brand new esports program at your school. But with leaders like Steve forging our path forward, if there's one thing we're certain of, it's that the future is bright. Our team at Michigan Virtual is working with MASSP, the Michigan Association for Secondary School Principals, to build an online esports summer program for students. If that sounds interesting to you, you can fill out a form to stay up to date on our latest online summer programs at michiganvirtual.org/summer. If you know someone who's an inspiring Michigan educator who should be featured on our show, send us an email at bright@michiganvirtual.org to let us know who they are and why we should interview them. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Bright, Stories of Hope and Innovation in Michigan Classrooms. This podcast is produced by Herbie Gaylord, is hosted by me, Nikki Herda, and is shaped by many of our passionate and talented colleagues. Big thanks to Ken Durkin, Holly Boleski, Terrence Wilkerson, Anna Boyer, Sarah Hill, and Brandon Batista for their contributions to this episode. Bright is brought to you in part by Mimic Insurance Company, insuring the educational community for more than 70 years. Teachers and school employees visit mimic.com/quote to see how much you can save. The Bright Podcast is made possible by Michigan Virtual, a nonprofit organization that's leading and collaborating to build learning environments for tomorrow. Education is changing faster than ever. Discover new models and resources to move learning forward at your school at michiganvirtual.org.